So in the interest of time, we will move straight on to panel number 3, which is Innovating for Growth in the African Agri-Food Sector. So I thank all my panelists from panel number 2, and I now invite panelists from panel number 3 to come forward. First, we shall hear from Sarah Kiyingi KAWEESA, who is the CEO of JIGSAW Limited and the winner of FAO's Ugandan Diaspora Entrepreneur of the Year prize. Second, we shall hear from Xavier SCHELDEMAN, who is the head of research at the Meise Botanic Garden. And third, from Fombong FORKWA, who is a co-founder of Wasterminators, Cameroon. Sarah, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you so much. Good afternoon, good evening. I don't know where everybody is based, but good afternoon, good morning, good evening, all our viewers. As mentioned, my name is Sarah Kiyingi KAWEESA. I'm the innovator of biodegradable natural hair made from banana fiber. And last year, I won the award from FORKWA. FORKWA is the Food and Agricultural Organization for United Nations. Thank you so much, FORKWA, for supporting us and walking the journey along with us. And we're still doing the same. Thank you so much. My job today is probably take you through how I came up to innovate the biodegradable natural hair. The focus was mainly on joining the environmental protection campaign for fighting plastic pollution. And then my background, which I didn't mention, is in human resource management and organizational development, which I've done for over 25 years. And then I realized that I need to retire from that career because I've been there and I became a walking encyclopedia. I needed to create space for newcomers to join the industry of human resource. So by thinking of retirement, you have also to think about what are you going to do in your retirement. So I didn't want to just sit and think about the weather and everything. So I decided to venture into innovation and creating different products, probably not becoming an inventor, but improving on the current products which are on the market. But I ended up becoming an inventor of biodegradable natural hair, which a product I'm proud of at the moment as it is. It has gained momentum. Interest is very high across the world. And so many people would love to join me in terms of producing hair because many countries are actually banana farmers. I realized that even if Uganda is the third banana growing country, but so many countries have banana. So I keep on talking to people about banana, how useful the plant is, the fiber. We can get 10 industries out of the same raw material. So I keep on telling people, don't worry if the species you have in your country, you can't produce the hair. There are other industries which you can join, like fiberglass, making fiberglass. You can make crafts. You can do a lot from the same raw material. So I keep on telling people, hair is very good from a certain species, but if you can't get a certain species, please don't just sit down, try and use the fiber you have to make other products. So I encourage people and I talk to people, and I'm continuing talking to people as we speak now. We are into Western Uganda. We take our machines as we do extraction for our hair. We intend to teach the local people how to extract fiber and then raising awareness of what else they can do from the banana stem rather than throwing it away. So I'm a believer in innovation because innovation can create jobs, variable jobs, not just any job, but you can create variable jobs. You can add value to farmers. At the same time, you could actually work in collaboration with different industries, because farming is the source of income for many African countries. But we need collaboration, we need partnership from government, we need partnership from institutions like UN, FAWE, and other stakeholders to make sure that we add value to the farmers, and then farming becomes a job for life rather than just a by the way producing food business. So innovation is a kind of there's a need for support, especially for our young innovators. Young innovators, sometimes they think they don't have money for registering the IPP, which I think governments could pick up on that area and support those innovators, because some of our youth did not have a chance to go through the mainstream of education, but they are very, very smart, and they could actually produce a lot of good ideas, which those ideas, they're sitting on those ideas because they think no one is interested in their idea, because we have a problem in Africa that we think that engineers or professors are the only one who are supposed to think for us, and then we are supposed to implement, which is not right, because there's always a way. The people who have lived the problem, they are the best solution provider for that problem. So those guys who didn't go to education, they don't have jobs, they come up with great ideas to come out of the poverty, but they are not supported at all. So we're encouraging governments, we're encouraging probably UN organization or stakeholders in this conference to pick up those kind of innovators, give them support, encourage them to start up social enterprises where they can earn money and also develop their ideas forward. Probably they could start up collaboration like clusters, because if they don't know how to market their product, marketeers can join the innovators. They don't know how to design their packaging, the people into graphics and whatever can join in. So clusters can also build upon those guys to make sure that their innovation are actually pushed forward, and then countries can grow and also create jobs for innovators. And when we talk about innovation, it's not necessarily inventing new products. We have current products which needs to be improved on, because the world keeps on looking at new products and new services. All the time, we can't get stagnant because this is what we have on the market. People keep on looking for new products and services. So those who are looking into entering the business or creating new products, they need to go into starting from what is current offered on the market, and then improve on that. Work with the manufacturers to see that you sell, because when I was in Uganda Telecom, people used to sell contents to us. We were not developers of those contents. We used to buy contents from developers. So why can't industries buy ideas from the innovators as well to improve the products? So maybe because they think the developers are not engineers or professors, but those guys are very smart out there and they need to be supported. Industries, they need to look into those guys, look for those guys and make sure that their ideas are taken on board and help them, and they can help the organizations to grow as well. I guess the main issue here is collaboration and finding ways of supporting innovation, because innovation is the economical growth for each and every country. We cannot stay in the same position if we don't grow our products, if we don't support agriculture, technology. look at what we used to have before. We used to have tractors which used to go and clear bushes or dig, but now we have combined harvesters. It wasn't completely a new product, but it was improved on, and now it's adding value to the farmers. Okay, there's someone in. Hi, Andrew. Andrew, you're on.
Sorry, Sarah.
Okay. So that's why I am with innovation, encouraging people. Probably FORKWA could, as I said, join me in building capacity in rural areas for farmers, because it takes time for me to extract for my business, at the same time training the local people. So if you could, we could join forces whereby other stakeholders can pick up the capacity building for the local farmers, and then we do the practical experience for them.
Thank you very much for your presentation, Sarah. And innovation and intellectual property are also close to my heart. I'm currently completing my PhD on that topic in the agri-food sector. So I wholeheartedly join in the message of your presentation. Next, we have Xavier SCHELDEMAN. Xavier, are you with us? Xavier, if you can just unmute. Xavier, sorry, we're not hearing you.
Yeah, okay. Can you hear me now?
Perfect, we can hear you now.
Sorry. I'm just sharing my screen.
Thank you.
Okay, are we there with the screen?
Yes.
Okay, thanks a lot for having me. So I now would like to show a little bit what research, how important research could be to improve market options of agrobiodiversity. So I will quickly introduce myself also, and then we will go a little bit to crop diversity, very important, and then also what is really needed to go from a plant species, a crop species, to really a commercial crop. I'm an agronomist by formation, so I don't have so much of an economy background. I'm really focusing on plants. And I've worked in Ecuador for 7 years, really working on new crop development. So really looking at new species to really enter the market. Then I joined Bioversity, International Agricultural Research Organization, where I was leading the use. I think you also have, I will remove this now, yeah. Where I was leading the use of genetic resources to improve livelihoods program from Colombia. So I've worked quite a lot in Latin America. I've been in Africa for travel, for congresses, but I have not been working so much over there, although of course a lot of these concepts that I will present now are of course also valid for Africa. After working for Bioversity, I joined the private sector where I was working for crop design on plant quality, and now since this year I'm leading the research in Meise Botanic Garden. So a little bit on crop diversity. So this is, I don't know, yeah, I will keep this. So you cannot see the title now, but the number of cultivated species, this is a very typical numbers, but I think they're very important now. So in the world, there's around, it's not very clear, between 300,000 and taking into account all the species not yet described, 500,000 plant species. Of these, about 10% are really edible, could be used, you know. So this is 10%, but if we really look at reality, only 7,000 are currently used. Of course, 7,000, that's still quite a big number. But if we really look at the main crops, we're really getting to these very small, very low numbers. 30 plant species are already responsible for 95% of the calories and protein uptake. 10 species only account for 75%. You can see the ones here. So 2 of them are of African origin, millet and sorghum. And then, of course, then we go to the top 3. that's only 3 species. It's rice, wheat, and corn who are responsible for 50% of the vegetable energy consumption. So we go from 300,000 and we end up with 3 species. However, if we look at the map of global plant diversity, we see that there's really, this is how this 300,000 species are spread. And also in Africa, you can see here around Cameroon, also the Great Lakes, South Africa have a high plant diversity. Of course, you could say, okay, we want to have crops, not plants. So this is what the Russian explorer Vavilov did. He really went to traveled the whole world to look where origins of crop species were found. And in Africa, this is a little bit, this is of course already very old, it's from 35. CIAT, where I was based in Colombia, made an update 1996. So now they have this very nice graph where you can see where each crop is coming from. And looking at Africa, which is the focus of this presentation, you can see coffee, for instance, cowpea, cola nuts, sorghum. So there's a lot of important crops who have their origin in Africa, and where the question is all the diversity used enough now? So this is a little bit some examples of crops where there's a lot of diversity in Africa, and whether we don't know whether all of this diversity is already being used. Now you have the staple crops, I mentioned already, the millets and the sorghums. Also cowpea is quite important. Coffee, of course, is very important, and not for food, but for income. It's also, and here in Meise, we do work a lot on coffee. So this is also something that can be used to generate income. Okra, sesame, watermelon, these are also quite important crops at world level where the diversity is found in Africa. And then, and these are a little bit of my favorite because there's much more. We saw already the bisap. I like this a lot. The baobab, of course, is one that is really coming. And of course, the cola nut, which also has a lot of interesting market opportunities. But of course, we really want to start from a list of plants now. So important here to really go to the 7,000 utilized plant species is really to register what is used. And this is what ethnobotany is doing. And we're also in Meise doing that here. What is used by local populations? How are the species used for what? And then you come up with a long list of plant species and their local uses. And this is already important because we all know that this local knowledge is getting lost. So somehow this has to be recorded if we want to use that in the future. And here in Meise, we do that a lot with mushrooms. But when I was working again, for instance, it was also done in Namibia, really looking at plant species. So you can really go for all the edible species now. Very interesting for those that want to have a little bit of information on a particular plant species is this Plant Resources of Tropical Africa database, where you really can find a lot of information on a lot of plant species used in Africa. It's really, I show here an example of baobab, but this goes on for several pages now. So I think this is really a very nice compilation of what is available on plants, useful plants in Africa. Of course, the next step is we have a long list of species. Which one will we use now? And of course, which ones have the highest potential to generate income now? Important there is, of course, to make things a little bit easier, which ones are already cultivated. If you really want to go from the forest immediately to, let's say, export, this is quite difficult. How is the market situation of some of the crops? Are they important at local, regional, global level? Of course, it's also interesting if you have other ecosystem services, could be carbon sequestration, pollinators. So you come up from this long list of species that are used with priority plant species. And there is a very high risk that if you choose the wrong species and you continue the whole path that I will present afterwards, you might not be successful now. So it's very important. Otherwise, you will lose a lot of resources and time when you do the wrong prioritization now. Next is really, and this is one that I have been working quite a lot on, is also how to grow this species now. What are the ecological requirements of the species, where to grow it? Because if you grow the species on the wrong location, you might also end up with very few production. Where can it be cultivated? Reproductive biology, pollination, propagation, seed, how to propagate it best, cultivation techniques. So you really need to have all this knowledge if you really want to get a productive where to generate income. Now, this is a quick example how you can use maps. Currently, there's a lot of mapping systems really to define optimal cultivation zones. This is an example where on a cherimoya, on a Ecuadorian fruit crop, we were really looking at germination. So this is over 3 years. So a farmer will not want to wait 3 years to get the seeds germinating. So you really want to get all the seeds germinating as soon as possible. So, and then by using some very simple products, you can really get this whole, all the seeds germinating. So if you really go from a wild crop or a crop where not a lot is known, you really need to have all this basic knowledge in order to be successful by introducing a new crop. Next step would really be, okay, we will have a lot of diversity of this crop, of course. Which ones, which varieties will we use? Because there will be a lot of diversity. This is typical for a crop in its center of origin. So then it becomes very important to know the consumer requirements, which accessions to grow, to look whether additional breeding is needed. So you really want to end up with the elite material that is available for cultivation. Very important here, and I have been working on that also quite a lot, is the risk of genetic erosion, because here is when all the diversity is often being lost now, and there's a few varieties that are being grown, and you might need these ones in the future now. So as I mentioned already, we will start selecting from a whole diversity, and here we need to make sure that we don't lose this diversity. This is also an example of the same crop where we looked at, for instance, the number of seeds per 100 gram of fruits, and these are commercial varieties grown in the world. And there we could easily show that if you go to the center of origin, you very easily find accessions or selections that perform much better than the crops that are currently grown at global level. Now, especially for these new crops, there's still a lot of room for improvement. Next, and this is also an important step, is really how to optimize post-harvest storage, because this is often where things go wrong. Also, you can grow it, you have a nice product, but you're somewhere quite isolated, so you still need to get all that to the market. So you need to understand a little bit about post-harvest, and especially about processing options, because processing is often an interesting option to increase value. You add value, and you also facilitate commercialization, because you can dry it, and or you can put it in a jar, and then it becomes much easier to keep or to sell or to transport. Of course, often also here, consumer preference will be key, because if you say, okay, I will do it, I will dry it, but nobody likes the dried fruit or anything, you're also in a dead end here now. So you really want to have technologies to optimally conserve and process your product. This is an example of a NIFAD project where I was working in, also where we were looking at quinoa. And this is a typical way how quinoa has been processed in Peru and Bolivia. So really very artisanal. And this is, of course, you cannot sell these products on a national or let alone international market. And so with this IFAD project, we were really looking at simple but very efficient tools to improve all these processing steps. Finally, or not finally, next step would be to sell it really now, how to optimize commercialization, how to increase demand, how to enter international markets, very complicated. And also you have to be very careful. If a lot of people would be working on the same crop, you could risk overproduction or price crashes. No? So this is also a known pitfall. The good news here is that from the latest data, for instance, this is from bananas, there is really a very steep increase of all the food prices. It's not that, as in the past, food prices did not increase. This has been shifted a little bit. So this, of course, offers interesting opportunities to generate income. Other good news is that there's new markets also for agrobiodiversity. I mentioned already the quinoa example, because this is a nice example of a success story where the quinoa, which was before only grown in the Altiplano of Peru and Bolivia, is now being sold all over the world. One of the aspects is its health properties now. So if you really can show nice health properties that could also be interesting to open new markets. This is an example of chocolate, but the same is valid for coffee. For instance, there is this consumer sophistication where in the past everybody was just eating chocolate or drinking normal coffee. Now you want to have single origin coffees. So this is also offering interesting opportunities. Of course, this has been mentioned also already. Ethnic food markets also offers, and this is of course also important for the diaspora. This also offers interesting market opportunities. And then also sometimes there's discovery of new properties of a known product, as in the case of Yacon, which is an Andean root, which has anti-diabetic properties. So also very important for marketing. Finally, and this is the last step, but of course, this whole process is not as simple as I presented it now, but there's a lot of policies also that could be of benefit. For instance, geographical indications, appellation d'origine. This is of course mainly used in Europe, but also this is, for instance, an example of a Tahitian product, fair trade, organic trade. In the case of Chirimoya in Peru, they developed really their own label just by the location in Cumbe. That was known all over the country as being the best fruit. So just by putting this sticker on the fruit, of course, it has to be true now, they could increase the value of the fruits significantly. The bad news is that there's also a lot of policies which complicate commercialization, especially novel food regulations. So, you know, you cannot just enter a new crop in the European market unless it has already been consumed or sold before. There's a lot of food safety regulations to take into account, also complicating standards. So as we saw also in the example of Bolivia, you need to have a constant standard now. And then of course, it's much more beyond anyone's control as market access barriers now. But this is also a thing that need to be taken into account. So to conclude, I think there's a lot of plant crop diversity, so potential present in Africa, as I have shown now. I think there's good market opportunities, there's good prices, there's a consumer interest in all these new products. I think there's also interest from the donors to support this project, this approach. So there is good opportunities for income generation, but, and this is not a trivial thing, there, as I have shown now, there's many questions, there's many disciplines to be tackled at the same time now. So you really need to have a multidisciplinary approach, I think, and this has also been mentioned already. Collaboration will be very important. So research will be important. So to really use the synergies of all partners, I think if one company, I think it's very difficult to tackle all these issues now. And of course, as I mentioned already, there is the risk of failure now if one of the steps is not really taken into account. I think there is quite some examples also of very promising crops and new crops, but not a lot of them will make it to the market now. So this is something that needs to be taken into account. And I just wanted to end with something that is close to my heart. All these processes tend to narrow down the diversity now, and this is something that needs to be conserved. Otherwise, the future, we might have big problems in the future. Thanks for the time, and I'm open for questions. I did not mention the leafy vegetables, which are also very close to my heart, and I think which also have a lot of potential.
Thank you very much, Xavier. And I'm very pleased to see that you mentioned geographical indications, because that's my area of expertise and the subject of my PhD. So something I'm personally passionate about.
Yeah, very important.
Yes. Next, we have Fombong FORKWA, who's a co-founder of Wasterminators Cameroon. And we have 5 minutes left of this panel. Then we have to give the interpreters and the technical team who are behind the scenes a bit of a break. So Fombong, over to you.
Yes, hi, good afternoon, everyone. Permit me share my screen.
Yes, you can share.
Yeah, start visible to everyone.
Yes, thank you.
Great. So yes, I mean, with everyone has been thanking Maureen, but we can't stop thanking you, Maureen, for bringing this really close to us. We are really grateful, and I think you are those the giants of today on which we are going to lean on and see further. So to your team, KAWEESA, Yentil, and everyone, all the organizing team, we really thank you for this, and thank you for really reaching out to us, Wasterminators. We are quite young in the scene. We are less than a year old. We are a bioengineering private limited company, fully registered in Cameroon. And what we do, it's really trying to convert waste into wealth. Waste, at the moment, our focus is on organic waste, and we are converting them using biological agents into different forms of wealth, as I would talk about. I think everyone here is familiar with the issue of waste when we talk about Africa, or sub-Saharan Africa to be specific. It's a huge pandemic. I think if COVID was not huge enough, I think waste is probably bigger than COVID-19. So it's a big problem. The landfills are completely exhausted. You find streets that have been reduced to pathways because of people abandoning waste and so on. So there's really that huge problem. At the moment, only about 35% of this waste is collected in the cities. The rural areas, well, they are left for themselves. Food insecurity continues to remain a huge problem. More than 2.7 million Cameroonians go without food. I mean, poverty is something we can't keep talking about. But when we look at all of these problems and we combine our passion and our background, I'm a bioengineer trained at the University of Leuven, and at the moment I currently work as a research staff with the bioengineering department in Leuven. So when we look at the experiences we have gathered from our study and our work in the diaspora and the compounding problems that keep existing, perennial problems like this, we think there are ways to find, I would not say, I'm afraid sometimes to use the word innovative. I'm happy the previous speaker, Sarah, clarify things. Innovation doesn't still really mean something, pop up new, some Tesla kind of equipment. No. But really reinventing the wheel and bringing a little change into things. So we thought of looking at the waste problem from another angle. And permit me just go back a little bit into how this all came about. Way back in 2001, after my undergraduate studies, I started teaching as a private school teacher and earning a meager salary of less than $100 a month. And I looked for means to increase my income. And one of the things that came to my mind at that time was farming snails. So I started farming snails way back in 2002 until I left for further studies to Europe. So that has always been at the back of my mind. And a few years back, with some of my little trips around, I visited Kenya, and I happened to see what they were doing wonderfully with waste and how they are trying to sort things out. I'm like, oh, if this is happening in Africa, this is Kenya, this is an African country, so I think we can also do something like this. So we borrowed some of the ideas of what is happening wonderfully in Kenya. So I appreciate all my Kenyan brothers and sisters who are following us here, and we like what you're doing. So that's where the idea of using insects on the one hand and snails on the other hand to kind of tackle the waste problem in our own little way. So here we are talking of a complementary biodegradation using two agents. So on the one hand, we use black soldier flies, which are popularly referred to as BSF. And on the other hand, we use the African giant snail, the Chachena species, to convert waste, in this case, organic waste, into insect protein, insect oil, and fertilizer for the insects. And on the other hand, we produce snail slime, snail meat, and snail shell powder from the snails. And what's our model? It's a simple workflow. With the we begin with our collections. So at the moment, we collect from local wholesalers, what the Nigerians call mama put, those who sell foods along their streets. So instead of dumping their waste in the gutters, we tell them, please, we would collect them for you kindly for free. So we collect that waste and take them to our processing plant. where we are able to produce organic fertilizer and animal feed, which is the insect whole meal, and that we're able to send to the market, which I would show some of the products later. In addition to the black soldier fly, we also have, on the other hand, the snails. Snails is more common. It's quite popular in Nigeria, in Ghana, in Cameroon as well. There are a number of people who farm snails. So, but we have gone a little bit further. So we have two systems in which we function here. So there is the option during the seasons, like now when it's rainy, snails, we collect snails from the wild, or we buy them from local market vendors, and we process them in the van, we process them in our factory. When it is off season, like during the dry seasons, when these snails hibernate and they're no longer available, then we bring out our snails that have been farmed, and we are able to keep a current and continuous supply of our products into the market. And as products for this snail, we have mostly our slime, which is our premium product, which is out. And I hope we'll be able to, for those of us who will be in Belgium on Sunday at the exhibition, we will be able to see some of these products. We have our snail meat, snail water, which is some of the byproducts of the snail. And we have plans to start a beauty soap line with that. And also the remains from the feed of these soldier fly, as well as the snail in this case, we compose them into organic feed additives that help to enhance our soils. Now, there's something which I would say it's a bit unique about our system. On the one hand, you have others, maybe in Kenya, for instance, Uganda, who are into black soldier fly farming. On the other hand, you have several people in Nigeria and Cameroon who are into snail farming. But what we have been able to do is to combine and harness the power of these two and to kind of complete the loop, such that the waste, the carcass from the black soldier fly, from the insects, when they complete their cycle, that protein source is fed into our snails, used to compose our snail feed, which on the other hand, those who are familiar with snail farming, when you want to get the snail meat out of the shell, there is a degutting process. The rest of the offals stays into or inside the shell. That is a huge problem because most of the vendors who sell these, they throw these empty shells with the intestines and the offals on the streets. And that's really a huge problem. Smelly, and you can imagine how horrible that is. But we have been able to find a way out by not only using the snail meat and using the snail shell, but we also use the offal, the leftover from these shells, which are difficult to actually get into because of the coiled nature of these shells. But we're able to feed them to our larvae, who are very voracious feeders that can get in and clean up these shells for us. And by so doing, we end up with clean shells that will be ready now for the next step, where we now dry them, process them into shell powder for another product. I'll just show a few pictures of BSF, probably for those who are not very familiar with what we mean by black soldier fly. So to my left, you have the eggs here. So these are where they lay eggs in sheets, very tiny eggs. And at this, to my right, we have here the what we call the love cage. So this is where the adult flies actually mate. And when I look at the next slide, you see this is our farming system. So we use a vertical indoor system for the larvae. So the larva is actually the part that feeds on the waste. So each of these containers can take up to between 7 to 15 kilograms of waste. So we feed this, we collect these eggs and we drop them into waste that has already been put into these containers. And the result is pre-pupa, which migrate out of the waste once they have reached the age where they want to move to the next phase. And from there, we are able to collect them and process them into animal feed, or we use them to continue populating our colony. And since we are still very fresh, freshly began, so we are really focused now on building and expanding the colony. So indoors, we have the larvae, where the hatchery takes place, and the larvae feed on the waste. And then outdoors, we have the mating cages, or the adult love cages, where they need intense sunlight to be able to breed effectively. In addition to the black soldier fly corner, we also have the snails, and we are using the very similar system. So like I mentioned, the waste which we collect, the organic waste, 60% of it is used to feed our soldier flies, and the remaining 30 to 35% is formulated together with other ingredients to make an artificial diet, which our snails love them really, really much. And it helps us produce very good quality slime. Okay. Alongside, we have the two biological agents, so the black soldier fly on one hand and the snails on the other hand, but to also help us with some of the liquid waste that we get, we feed them to our bio waste digester. So this is the bio waste digester which we had obtained, we saw in Kenya in 2017, and we bought it and imported it to Cameroon, and we had all sorts of challenges to even get this working, but finally we have been able to get it working, and we are using it now to also produce liquid fertilizer. Of course, to process some of this waste, we need quite heavy machinery. So very, very recently, we have been able to procure some heavy equipment, which we use in mixing and homogenizing the waste so that these insects can break down our waste and produce finer fertilizer, and millers as well, both dry and wet, which we use to grind these products to get them in the ready-to-market form. Talking about our products, at the moment, we have the dried and the frozen snails. So dried snails, they are charcoal dried and then packaged and distributed most of in Cameroon. Then we have also, we've just recently introduced ready-to-eat snail stew with partnering with local food vendors. And we have the frozen snails, which we sell as well. And coming to our premium product, which I would expect those of us who will be present on Sunday to not only grab one, but grab at least three, because I can be sure if you would wait till next year to return, you'll probably find it completely gone. So this is our natural organic face and skin serum. I won't say it's the first of its kind in Cameroon, but we have been able to optimize our slime collection process, and we are proud to say that we have a product that works wonderfully. So far, we have them in Belgium, we have a partner in Nigeria, and we have recently had some samples sent to the US, and they are showing a lot of interest, as well as the Democratic Republic of Congo, where some people used them by chance, and the results were quite amazing, that they're like, please, can we have more of these products? So we have these products available on our Facebook page and even on our website as well. A few achievements before I round up. Even though we are less than a year old, we have so far 8 permanent staff with decent salaries. And when I say decent, I mean it's quite decent for where we are and for the level that we are operating at. So far, we've been able to galvanize more than 30 different women and provided them part-time work with the processing of our shells and the snails as well. Over 5 tons of snail meat has been produced. We've removed 2 tons of waste from the markets that would have been littering the streets. And we are making a lot of progress as well. And so far, we've had over 200 kilograms of snail meat from our farms and more than 50 kilograms of black soldier fly larvae in our facility, which would be converted into an animal feed. Challenges, of course, are many, some of which have been already discussed by previous panelists. But one of the few I would want to just quickly talk about is, we are talking about innovation here, and there's no way innovation would function without a proper R&D support staff. That is hugely lacking with the kind of resources, human resources we have in Cameroon. So even bachelor and master's degree holders are completely, extremely lacking in basic ideas or basic ways to help support a startup company like we are. So it's a huge challenge. Of course, COVID-19 came, and with all the price hike, we have experienced it and we are still suffering it. Chemicals and equipment supply has been just horrible. We have heavy equipment, we need to run them on energy, and energy in Cameroon is still a very big problem. So Like Susan already mentioned, how can we move to solar? Those are some of the things which we are knocking our brains on. So maybe later on we can relate and see how we can work on these kind of things together. Of course, Cameroon, like a few other countries with big licenses and all of that, we have all those kind of challenges, but that's what makes entrepreneurship. Mm-hmm. And one of the big challenge which I would want to really talk about now, because we have very important listening ears, is the access to the diaspora market. It's quite a challenge. And I just want to share that we have contacted the FORKWA to introduce snail meat into our into Europe. We have even contacted SGS to ask for the list of what we need, everything we need to be able to get ready in the next few years. But we've gotten very, very, I would say, very unfortunate answers, categorically banning our snail product from Cameroon into Europe. So it's a very sad thing, but we think with a huge diaspora community, we would want to serve them with this, but we are not able to. So we will think that in a way forward, let the diaspora continue giving back, not only financially, mentorship, master classes, giving all kinds of soft skills, need to keep encouraging them to continue digital learning, networkings like these, different partnerships. I'd like to partner with Susie Farms, for instance, looking for increased funding investments through OVO and many of the organizations that are available. And of course, very important, really sharing knowledge that would really help to foster our way forward. And this have not been possible without a wonderful team. We are 3 co-founders at the moment, the CEO, myself, Vice CEO, and Eric, both of us who are in Belgium, and Ayuka, who is our person on ground. So since I think the slides will be shared, those are our contacts. You can contact us for other things. And with that, I would want to leave you with the words of Gerard Abila, who said he would like to see in the future, and I think that future is now, where an Africa that is capable of developing creative and sustainable African solutions to African problems. So thank you for your kind attention, and I hand over to Yentil.
Thank you, Fombong, and thank you, Sarah and Xavier, for this wonderful information you shared on this panel. I know that Xavier and Fombong will be present on Sunday at Meise Botanic Gardens. So for those of you who can make it, you can ask your questions directly to them there.